Thanks for checking out Scotty's Hobbies. Today we're going to be replacing the front hub bearing assembly on this 2001 Chevy Tahoe. Make sure you have the vehicle properly jacked up and a jack stand under there in case something happens, you don't get hurt. Remove the wheel, set that off to the side. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share before you go too far, and get a notepad because we're going to go over a lot of stuff. To get the hub assembly off, we need to remove the brake caliper bracket and the caliper itself. So a T55 Torx and an 18mm socket you're going to need to get the brake system off. Then a 15mm socket to get those three hub assembly bolts off. Right here is the ABS sensor connector. That's going to be taken off pretty soon, fairly easy. When you buy the new hub assembly, it should come with a new ABS sensor and a wire attached. Just make sure it looks pretty similar before you go too far. Turn the wheel to the passenger side. This will make it easier to remove the brake system and the hub itself. So turn it off to the side, and as you can see, it's very, very easy. Using a T55 Torx, we're going to remove the caliper slider bolts. This is the caliper into the bracket itself. Remove these. If you check out my video library, I have a way more detailed brake replacement video that goes over how to clean everything up and properly lube everything before you put it together as well. If you have to pry on the brake caliper to get it off, make sure you pry on the rotor to the caliper, not on the brake pad. The inboard pad, just set it off to the side. The outboard pad, just pull it off the rotor. It will not come out. Be pretty hard. Using an 18mm socket, we're going to remove the bracket off of the spindle. Again, when you take all the brake system parts off, make sure they're very clean, if not all new when you put them on. That's pretty important. You don't want to mess up or cause yourself some more work later. 18mm, I'm using my little Milwaukee 1/4 inch after I loosened everything up. I like the 1/4 inch because it doesn't do any damage if anything gets bound up. It won't cause anything to strip, so I like that 1/4 inch after I loosened up, and also when I'm tightening it too. It doesn't over tighten. Remove that outboard pad, set everything off to the side. Now your rotor, just take it right off. Here it is, the hub assembly. Now, you're here, you don't want to go any further or replace this and just go. So let's check and see if anything else on the suspension system is messed up or loose. I'm using the end of the jack bar and pulling up on the suspension system to see if there was anything loose in there. So you should do the same too. Right here is your ABS sensor connector. On the top side is the lock. You're just going to push up on that and pry it apart, comes off. I like that little pry bar I have right there for the electrical components. It was actually for a door panel pry bar. It helps out a lot. You can see the connector, that top locking pin, clip I should say, not pin. Just push up on that and the connector comes right apart. If I would have looked before I made this video or looked a little bit harder, I would have noticed that the new hub assembly comes with these little plastic clips, so I could have just used my little pry bar and took all that off. Just remove everything and unthread, or make sure you take note of how the ABS is threaded through there and route it the same way. Take a look at everything, make sure it's the same, make sure the connectors are the same. It's a 3-bolt, I don't know how you can mess up, but just make sure everything is the same. Those are the 3 bolts holding the hub assembly onto the spindle. We're going to use a 15mm socket on a 1/2 inch breaker bar to loosen these bolts up and remove them. When you're tightening them up, you need to make sure you're using proper torque specifications. And when you tighten it up, we're going to go to 133 foot-pounds. So let's get this one off, set it off to the side, and get ready to install the new one. Hopefully you have your notepad out. Again, 133 foot-pounds is going to be what you're going to tighten them up to. This dust shield is pretty important. I have not heard of anybody wanting to take it off and leave it off, but don't. So don't be the first. Remove the old ABS sensor wire, pretty much unthread it and thread the new one through. Install it in the same exact fashion that you removed it, the dust shield that is. If you install it in backwards, it could rub on the rotor and cause you to do this whole job over again. So just make sure you pay attention to detail. Take a lot of pictures when you do this too, just so you could go back on your own work and make sure everything looks the same when you're putting it back together. These 3 15mm bolts, we're going to use the 1/2 inch socket wrench to tighten them up, but to properly tighten them up, we're going to go to 133 foot-pounds. That's 133 foot-pounds on a 1/2 inch torque wrench. You will be able to find links in the description for all the tools that I use in this video to get this job done. And if you do end up purchasing those, let me know. Let me know what you needed and let me know what you found. I'll try to get you the best deals on stuff or give you the links to the best deals on stuff down there. So take a look. 15 millimeter on those 3 hub assembly bolts. Set your torque wrench off to the side. When you're done with your torque wrench, always make sure to zero it out. Don't leave it at the last torque that you used it at. There's the connector. Thread it all the same that you took it off. Make sure, again, how to picture. Here, this is the brake fluid reservoir. You need to make sure that you have that cap off before you push the cylinders back, or the pistons, I should say, back up into the caliper. If you don't, you might cause leaks somewhere else or spring a leak somewhere else because of that. So just make sure the reservoir cap is off. I'm using a dual piston caliper compression tool. It's pretty useful. I like this thing. Again, link in the description below. If this video does help you out, probably said it before, comment below with the year, make, model, vehicle, all that with how this video helped you. I like to use a single lug nut on the rotor. When I'm installing everything, it keeps the rotor in place so it doesn't vibrate and make everything harder to line up. You can see right here, just one lug nut, just right there, that's it. When you install the rotor, make sure you clean off the inside of the rotor where the hub meets the rotor. It's pretty important. I don't go over it in this video, but it is important to do that. Use like a Brillo pad or something. These 18 millimeter bolts, we're gonna tighten them up. Don't just use this 1/4 inch gun. That's just to get them snug. I'm gonna use a 1/2 inch torque wrench, which you don't usually use. Actually, you do usually use. This is a normal torque setting on a caliper bracket. So 18 millimeter, 129 foot-pounds on this bracket. It's 129 foot-pounds. But the weird part is, installing the caliper, I use a 1/2 inch torque wrench. So we'll get to that very soon. With your slider pins right here, they need to be cleaned up and properly lubed. You can see that bright purple lube that I have on there. In the brake video, I go over it a lot more of where to use it and how to use it. So make sure you check out the video library and check that out as well. Using the T55 Torx, we're gonna use the 1/2 inch breaker bar, not the breaker bar, the 1/2 inch torque wrench to properly tighten these slider pins down. 80 foot-pounds, T55 1/2 inch to 80 foot-pounds. You could use the 1/2 inch socket wrench to snug everything up, but again, I really recommend using a torque wrench to make sure everything is properly tightened. 80 foot-pounds, T55 1/2 inch torque wrench. Now, we're pretty much done. You got to make sure you get the cap back on your reservoir, and before you go too far, you want to press the brake pedal, build up the pressure in the brake system. I already started the vehicle, so it doesn't really show right here, but it does build up pressure. It should only take 3 to 5 pumps. And again, the cap on the reservoir, just make sure that's tight. You don't want to lose any fluid when you turn left and right. And this job, real simple, should take you an hour and a half to get done. I hope you have a lot of notes. Thanks for watching. I hope this video helped you out. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share before you go too far. Maybe one of these 2 videos right here will help you out on another project. I'll see you on the next hopefully helpful video.